Kenya Youth Policy is another document that also we want to tease out a bit with CS this morning. So please head over to our Twitter handle and let's have this conversation. Also, our numbers will be up on your screens momentarily for you to call and ask questions and also share your contribution this morning. So it is you, your part as well, to drive the agenda. And we just want to buckle down to discuss these things that they've raised this morning. Beginning with you, Raphael Bonyo. No, just listening to the conversations we've had here, first of all, I'm trying to see where actually I had your points as well. You're saying by leaving youth behind, we are leaving Kenya behind. But as it is, the youth and the government, it seems that interface, the chasm is growing wider and wider. They're being left behind. They feel they're being left behind. You've heard what they're saying, that it is our voices, it's not, the issue is not being heard, the issue is being assumed. Are they left behind from your own assumption? And of course, the CS being next to you, just don't be very friendly. Let it all hang out. Yeah?
Yeah, she's friendly though. Yeah, I mean the thing is, many young people feel dismayed. They feel like they're left behind. They feel like they're not meaningfully engaged. Whether we're talking about development or whether we're talking about decision making, young people feel that they're not involved enough. And it's not just a feeling. It's true that truly we are not involving young people enough. Just look at representation. We still have positions and opportunities. Positions just going to people who are perhaps adults who perhaps don't even need these positions. In terms of exclusion, many more young people are excluded. And we imagine that by excluding youth, it is youth who are suffering, but it is the country that is suffering, because youth are not just about problems, or youth are not just about, by excluding youth, we are losing out on their creativity, on their talent, on their skills, and that's why we cannot move forward as a country. So we should see youth as the asset, like I said, and we should involve them more. When you look at opportunities, we are not creating opportunities enough as they're required by young people. Look at our education system. There's a study that was released recently, and 50% of young people who graduate are not able to get jobs. And what are we doing? We are pushing them to we are telling them, create your own jobs, which is a great thing, really, but are we creating that environment, enabling environment for young people to be able to create these opportunities that are required? So, and there have been interventions, but I always feel like it's like being on a treadmill. You're in motion, but there's no movement. So there's a lot that seems to be, there's something that is happening, but it's not good enough.
So we're just there treading waters, we're not moving, no action at all. Yes. But we raise an important point about representation of the youth also. And Professor, you actually written a very interesting article recently about the board representation. That has been also a key issue, where we don't have youthful faces in these boards, Stella, Diana, or Raphael. We are not having, these youthful faces in the boards anymore. And people have been saying about, they're not experienced, so they cannot actually come and sit in the boards as well. So where is a connection? And I just want Diana to speak on this, also Stella to speak on this. Then how do we move forward in terms of advancing that and pushing that envelope, that we need representations in the board? The only boards that we have the young people is, NACADA. Is it because NACADA, maybe they can connect more to the youth because they're the people maybe who are slaving away with the issue of drugs and, narcotics in this country as well? Diana, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I would say in tackling inclusion, I would love to look at our constitution and the way we are operating in a devolved government system. And probably look at Nandi County, where the youth network, which works closely with Youth Agenda, is called Nandi County Youth Network. And through their interventions, out of the 9 boards in Nandi County, all the 9 boards have young people represented. 1 male, 1 female. In fact, now the campaign that we need to work moving forward in the same spirit of leaving no one behind, which is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, is to ensure now there's a young person who is with a disability, like a PWD, who is also sitting on all those boards. So that being said, it has been done. Can we look at what Nandi County has done to ensure that young people are sitting in the boards? Do they effectively participate in that? Before we look at the national organs and the national agencies, let us look at the county agencies first. So when we go to Nandi County, all the 9 boards be it the bursaries one or the ones that allocate bursaries to the high-performing students who have no economic means to take themselves to school. We have young people represented there, and that is
because also Nandi, I think
it's a youthful county.
It's a youthful county. We have a young governor, we have a young senator, we have a young speaker as well.
Exactly.
Maybe also people who are really up in years, they're greatly shy to apply for these jobs because they feel, how will they sit with this young tax and have a conversation at the end of the day? So it's more appealing to the young people.
It is appealing to the young people, but we have to go to every county. Let us go to Kakamega County and say, how many young people are in Kakamega County? Those young people have to be their own advocates. You advocate for a leader who is representing your views. I am happy to know that the CS is representing the youth agenda, because she just said youth agenda is a global agenda. We actually say the youth agenda is a development agenda too. So that being said, it's important that the young people themselves mobilize, be part of the public participation, because they don't participate effectively.
Stella.
And then have their people there. Thank you.
Dibal, allow me to start at the national level first, because the national level sets the example. In the event that we want the counties to follow through and implement and ensure that there are young people represented in their governance, then we would need to have a watchdog. And that watchdog, as enshrined in our law right now, the National Youth Council Act, is the National Youth Council. They're responsible for documenting youth organizations, documenting youth professionals and what they're doing, and ensuring that every single appointed body actually has young people in it. The National Youth Council is responsible for ensuring that young people are their voices are not assumed, as we have said, they're being assumed right now. They are responsible for checking to make sure that even the budgeting process is responsive to young people. We are supposed to be having an elected National Youth Council with delegates all the way to the ground. If we had those delegates, they would be in the counties saying, you know what, as a council, we are responsible for monitoring that you make sure you implement this. In this county, you're not doing well. In this county, you're doing well. We actually had one election of a National Youth Council in this country. And right now, we have a council that is an illegality. This happened before Professor came into office. And right now, we continue with the council that has been appointed by the ministry, and therefore the structures for it to function do not exist. Now, if accountability is messed up at that level, then it means everyone is free to do what they want to do. Because right now, if women are not included in a board, for example, Ngek will speak on this matter. If youth are not included, who will speak for young people? And you see, without agency, it becomes a bit difficult to have the kind of agency to respond to issues as they arise. But having said that, we have built a lot of capacity in young people, and we meet them every day. Diana, Raphael, and I know even the CS will attest to the fact that they've met exemplary young people who are amazing at what they do, either on the ground or at a national level or outside this country. How is it that we're not tapping on their voices? Raphael is telling the truth when he says it's the country that is losing. Most countries are actually tapping on the energies of their young people when they're very young, giving them an opportunity to influence the planning of their cities, giving them an opportunity to influence the structuring of their residential areas, up to the conversations concerning their education system and how it works for them. If you do not have these young people in the room, it basically means their voice is missing. What our society needs to realize is that these people are going to be inheriting the conversation of governance after this. What would we like them to do? How is it that they're going to take over, for example, from the CS and continue doing the good work she's doing? They talk about experience. You see, for me, it's a bit dangerous, and I've had this conversation with the senator for Nandi County. It's a bit dangerous to have a purely youth body. It's good to have a mix, which is why the proposal for the National Youth Council was to have a council that has a mixture of ministries and young people, and then have a board that has experienced people who are probably above the age of 35 and understand youth to advise them. And the reason why you need to have this mix is because there's need for intergenerational dialogue and need for exchange of experience and sharing experience. In the absence of that mix, Dibal, it means young people will never learn. They'll continuously go to the workplace. You'll be consistently asking them for experience, and they will not have it. I personally am the product of opportunities created for me to consistently volunteer, intern, work with people who knew what they were doing. And that is why I'm where I am today.
Thank you.
Dibal, I just wanted to dive in a little bit on this small matter of experience, which I think is extremely important. I think many a times youth have been locked out on the basis of lack of experience. I mean, while experience is important, as Stella alludes, I think also we should look at the fresh ideas, the creativity that young people also bring on board. So while experience is important, and that, of course, you garner over years, for us to be able to move forward as a country, we need to have a good blend of experience and fresh ideas. And so we shouldn't, youth should not be seen as inadequate simply because they don't have experience. They should be seen as adequate because of their fresh ideas and creativity and talent.
In other words, how will they actually gain this experience? We don't give them handy opportunity as well. But critical issues you raise as well that we need to also discuss. First of all, the National Youth Council is an equality, as alluded to by Stella. Is that why also we don't have Roy here this morning? Because he doesn't have the confidence, because he's operating on an equality in itself as well. Professor, surely. All right?
Thank you.
We invited him to be here. Now these are the matters he should have told us. What are the challenges he's facing? And this is
maybe he got the memo.
He got
the memo. No, I may not be able to say why the CEO, National Youth Council, is not here, but I am one believer of the youth diversity and what they bring in the various bonds, and especially their energy, their resilience, their innovation. Therefore, for me, when I joined the ministry and I realized most of the people in the State Department of Youth were a little bit not youth. I brought in Raymond, I brought in even this Sasaka has just come, Irene, so that the top level of the youth they are below actually 35, so that they can be able to speak with the other youth. So I think I do agree that where youth agenda is involved, I think we need to have the youth participate. Let me also say the government has also made some affirmative action. For example, when we have the National Youth Service, they said you bring in 2 youth, and not just 2 youth, one a woman, another one a man. So I think in the recent development of the law, based on the Constitution, there have been quite some effort to make sure that youth are included at the decision-making level. Let me also say that as much as experience is required, there is also the youth. I hear a lot of my youth telling me they need to be provided with opportunities. I also think they should go and look for those opportunities. And that's why we have this International Youth Week, where you speak up and bring a voice so that you can be able to argue with the data and the statistics that we in the bond, this is the percentage. You're here now like Nandi has a very good representation. Let's see, using the Constitution and the various regulations, how is the representation looking like? Because if we generalize, at the university, I was on the expected leadership of the youth. At various levels, how are the youth also coming up to lead even youth-led organization? Let me also just touch a little bit on how youth empowerment centers are going to help the youth. These youth empowerment centers have got internet. This is where they can go and get information, because you say information is power, so that they can be able to make a decision. We have also guidance and counseling. You realize because of the stressful life that we live right now, there are a lot of youth who have issues regarding their mental health, and they need to go even to get guidance on what careers are available. They have also opportunities for sports within these youth centers. Let me also say it is true. Establishment of 290 youth empowerment centers is a Vision 2030 agenda. So it is old. It is President Kibaki who started with. 152 have already been mapped out, and there are different stages. And remember, nobody has resources all the time. So they are actually launching them as we get the budgetary allocation every year to equip. They could have been there many years ago. You realize there are 152. The constituencies are 290. So the target is every constituency should have a youth empowerment center where the youth are able to access. And also the community living around, they can be able to use these youth empowerment centers so that they are able to build or to get information to kind of get connected to the world through the internet. And I think we should also commend the government for having taken especially power, electricity to almost 70% of the primary schools. And this is now where connectivity is very, 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 very important. So I would like to say that the government does not just address one issue at a time. It addresses all issues of development in a country. And that's why maybe we might not be felt like we have done enough for the youth, but I do believe in the youth. There are many youth, award-winning youth in this country that I've met through young leadership organization, and I think those ones who are the ones who have not just sat and waited for opportunity, but they have gone out to knock doors, to make a case. And I think that's where leadership counts, so that they are just not waiting for opportunities. Thank you.
But you've not really answered the National Youth Council issue,
Yes.
operating an illegality as well, because what we've had, there's so many benefits that we can actually come up with from the National Youth Council. Mobilize, sensitize, organize youth of Kenya under one umbrella of political, economic, and social, cultural and activities. And I think Costello has actually broken down all of that for us. So why is it slow on the object to actually have, you know, an election for the Youth Council? Right now what we have is just a secretariat. Why don't we have representation? What is the issue? Is it a bill right now? It's an act, actually, isn't it?
Actually, we have a law.
It's an act.
We have an act.
We have a law.
Yes, we have a National Youth Council, which is
2012.
especially articulate, 2012, which articulates what this National Youth Council. In fact, it has such a huge responsibility in terms of coordinating the youth agenda. However, I think we kind of experienced a setback, I think 2 years ago, when they sent the person who needs to be the CEO of the National Youth Council needs to be 35. And the one they hired was 33. So before he settled in the office, he was already moving. So what we have done, we have just managed to hire, I think 5 months ago, Lois Sisaka, now he is the CEO. He is new in the organization, and without really somebody who is kind of attending to day-to-day operations of any organization, some things are likely not to be working. Now we are put in place, and it's kind of a process where how are we going to get the leaders? And we have been very participatory even within the National Youth Council policy, so that National Youth Council, now through engagement, I think we have agreed what aspect of the law required to be amended, so that that election from the grassroots, we get the right leaders. Because what happened last time, I was informed that, and maybe you can comment on it, the election at constituency level was politicized. So in some constituencies, we didn't get the right leaders. So those we got, they did not serve the National Youth Council and the youth. They were doing their own agenda. So I think there's an amendment in the Parliament, so that now we can amend, so that the election is a meta-coordinated and we get the right people. That is what is in the process right now.
All right. We had also Diana raising the issue of degrees. Degrees should not define jobs. Elaborate on that in light of also the internship that we're talking about, and just open up also the whole theme about transforming or transformation of education, which is the theme that this particular year's celebration is running under. Diana.
Thank
so
you so
degrees cannot, you know, translate to jobs in this country, and 50% is an appalling figure of people who are graduates and they have not actually translated that degree into any meaningful, you know, employment at the end of the day.
Actually, this the comment I made on that came up as a result of a comment made by one of the student representatives at the panel discussion we had. And it was sad for us to hear, as a room of youth advocates, to hear a young person say that she did her first degree, I think, in linguistics, and she thought it was irrelevant. And so she's gone back to the University of Nairobi to do a medical degree. And I think, you know, the panel discussion just brought the conversation around. That should not have stopped you from realizing what you need to do and apply for jobs, and probably not say that it's obsolete. In fact, the word she used was obsolete. So degrees are meant to anchor us. They present an opportunity. In fact, most of the political leadership we have started their leadership journey or their opportunities in the universities. When you go to any learning institution, beyond academic results or certification that you get, you should be networking. You should be out there giving internships, the opportunities that Stella alludes to having optimized along the way as she was growing in her career. The same discussion just led to the digital transformation era. When you go to companies like Google, you'll be surprised how many marketers are digital analysts there, or how many people who do coding do not actually have IT training as their first degree. And the conversation goes on and on. We have doctors who are good singers. We have architects who are musicians. And so the thing there is, you need to know yourself. It is about self-awareness. And as you do your degree, don't look down upon it, because at one point in time, that skill that you gained there is going to be useful. But it is not the only definition of what you need to do in life. We also had a first-class graduate student who said to this day, I think it took her 5 years to even get a first employment. And you know, the panel discussion, we were empathetic to that. At the same time, we wondered, you stayed in school for 4 years, focused on your academic excellence and performance, but did nothing else, probably internship, volunteer work, which I know the UN is big on that. We have a program called UN Volunteers.
Yes.
So there's so many other opportunities, and I just wish to address my fellow youths in the learning institutions. That institution is much more than the certification that you will get. There are networks to be created, there are opportunities, there's mentorship from the leadership themselves. We have professors who have been youths as well. If you speak to them, they will give you real life experiences and tell you how to navigate these issues. So gone are the days where you would just lie in the library and focus on bookwork. You need to be an all-rounded person. In fact, the thought is that a first-class student should be an all-round student. Do they do sports? Do they have a hobby? What else do they do? Do they actually work? Before you get that certification, it's not all about the A's that you get in your certificate, but in the whole person that you are. So that when you come into society, you have the soft skills that are needed in the workplace.
Expertise that the youth reference group can offer to the ministry right now. Just sitting down and analyzing what would work best. How do you ensure that there's no political interference with this body, so that the kind of body that is set up eventually comes out to address the issues of young people. And the other thing is to make sure that if there's going to be a bill to amend the National Youth Council Act in Parliament, then it needs to come from the ministry. It needs to come from the ministry, because at least the ministry understands where we are coming from. If it comes from a member of parliament who is aligned to certain political interests, you never know. We may actually have a council that is a wing of a political party, and for me, I think that would be a dangerous thing.
That's why we're given an opportunity to actually amend that particular bill. So he's not really cast in stone. So he has suggestions, other proposals. We can actually, tweak, and cut and,
And if we feel that it actually doesn't serve our interest, there's room for us to actually, develop an entirely new one. But for me, the end product should be beneficial to the youth of this country.
Yes.
Making sure that their voice is not, first of all, that their voice is heard and that it's not assumed. And for me, that is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Having said that, still focusing on the beneficiary, because as we develop programs for young people, we must consistently ensure that, one, as the CS has said, that they're youth-led, but number two, that they're responding to the needs of the youth. You did mention the constituency youth empowerment centers. Our country was in trouble in the year 2008, and for us to come back to some form of order, the former Prime Minister and the President at the time, Kibaki, signed a National Accord and Reconciliation Agenda, which they were calling NARA. It's strange that we are in similar situations right now, because we have a situation where the former Prime Minister has actually gotten into an agreement, the handshake with the President. But then this time, within BBI, the youth were not mentioned, but in the National Accord and Reconciliation Agenda, the youth were prominently mentioned. Some of the targets that were set included the targets to create, I think, 740,000 jobs, but, to set up a National Youth Council, which is why the Ministry of Youth Affairs at the time really pushed the process of setting up the National Youth Council. But then one of the commitments was set up constituency youth empowerment centers, and that meant a center in every single constituency. And the process has started. Some of the challenges that were faced included lack of land. Many of the public spaces available were not being availed to government to build the structures. But then in the spaces where land was available, the structures were created. Many of them had a building, but did not have facilities for outdoor activities. At the time, the ministry also had very few youth officers, so they could not reach many of the places. But I think by the end of the year 2012, when the council was being set up, most of the constituencies had at least a youth officer responding to the matters there. And then the call was for development partners and youth organizations to partner with the ministry in running programs within the centers. And I remember the organization I was working for at the time was actually proposing a model that we were implementing with the One Stop Youth Resource Center, where we were providing the internet services, we were providing computers for youth to access internet and apply for jobs, we were providing career counseling within the institutions, we were helping them develop job applications, helping them analyze advertisements and everything, and understand really what is required of the job, and sometimes preparing them for interviews. So the ministry may not have all the resources to run all these programs. Once a center is set up, youth organizations need to come out and actually complement those services, especially those that are already running programs. There are many places where business incubators could actually be hosted in the buildings that were created. But then when these buildings are set up, Dibal, and then the ministry, and not maybe the ministry, let's talk about the representatives of the ministry on the ground, because sometimes the ministry is not aware that this is happening. The people responsible for the centers actually hire them out to people to conduct weddings and to conduct all kinds of functions, and some of them are being used as churches, okay? And the resources are not going into the building of the facility, then there's a problem. And there's a fundamental problem.
So there's an issue of corruption as well.
There's an issue of corruption.
Fantastic.
Some of the best performing centers at the time, because we did a scorecard, and I think I've sent Diana a copy, was Embakasi Youth Empowerment Center. Just the other day I was getting a report that the equipment that was bought for Embakasi Youth Empowerment Center disappeared, just went missing. So is it motivating for anybody who's willing to invest in the centers to continue investing? I
think also as we are planning to wind up as well. Bwana PS, you will tell us, Bwana CS, you will tell us also, not Bwana CS.
I can see you also going to the trouble.
It's the Ministry of
Gender. CSs need to be men. That one, we are aware of that.
My friend,
But then very quickly comment on the
just before the CS comments,
Please,
because
okay.
I think I'm sure the CS wants to provide a response to the issue of NYC and of course Youth Empowerment Center.
Yeah.
I think the issue of NYC and some of us were really involved in terms of advocating for establishment of a National Youth Council. I think a body that represents the youth is extremely important. I think we must start from there. But to set it up, I think election is sort of the approach that many young people propose, not appointments. And so if we do not get the elections right, then we will never get the NYC right and functional. And so I think the CS, as the government, because I'm sure the government also wants to manage a National Youth Council to make sure that maybe it's functional or it does not run amok, you know. We must make sure that we have we get the elections right, and whether it is going to be a delegate system or whether it is going to be universal suffrage, we need to make sure that that process helps us to get the right people. Because while we had the right structure in terms of National Youth Council, when it came to elections, I think the people we got on board were not necessarily representing the interest of the youth, but ended up representing other interests and paying allegiance to other loyalties, and I think that was the unfortunate thing. So I think we must look at the amendments that have been proposed and see truly if they are going to give us the right representative. On the issue of youth empowerment centers, I think it's one thing to set up the youth empowerment centers, and they've been set up across the country. But to make them functional and operational is a totally different thing. And so the government must also make sure that beyond the launches and the revamping of these centers, what are the mechanisms that are put in place to make sure that these centers are running? And one of the ways of ensuring making them operational and sustainable is to build partnerships, to reach out to other, to private sector, to youth-serving organizations, to development partners, and see what would be their contribution. Lastly is also to look at the quality of youth empowerment centers. If you're just going to put up a hall, I think that is not going to be beneficial to the youth. How do you make sure that we put up a modern youth empowerment center? UN Habitat has a system of accrediting a youth empowerment center based on a model they had set up a while ago on a one-stop youth center. This is one of the ways to go to make sure that these centers are not just halls there, they are not just open spaces, but they are spaces that can be utilized, the certain standards, and they can be able to really contribute to the well-being of young people. Right. So accreditation is also very, very important.
Accreditation. But accountability as well is very key. We don't know what the mechanism are put in place as far as the youth centers are concerned. If equipment are disappearing, they used also some of these centers to carry out, which is not bad, to have the weddings and all. That's why we have the youth centers. But where is the money going? Is it going back to actually also develop the same center as well? Professor.
Thank you very much. I think the bill, the amendment of the bill is as a result of the process that, any law is a living document, and it might sometimes come up with unintended outcomes. Then the election process we had just gave us the wrong people. So I think the youth here and elsewhere need to ask ourselves the right questions. What kind of election would deliver the right leaders that can lead NYC? And that's when we came up with amendment as a ministry. And the Kete came up with another amendment. We actually sat with him and they put it together. He's kind of married. But this particular parliament has got 40 young parliamentarians. In fact, to support this International Youth Week, they were holding an event in Saburu. 40. I mean, even when we're talking about participation, I think you may agree with me, this is the highest number of young people parliamentarian forum. I think we should also use them, because the bill cannot pass unless it's passed through the parliament. That's why we are representation. So we need also to lobby so that we bring our attention with the youth, so that you see what comes out of those amendments is what's going to serve you. It might, of course, have some challenges, because sometimes you can never address everything, but we cannot repeat the same. You asked why the county commissioner. In government, people address issues in a structure. If you think county commissioner is not working for you, then propose who else will be able to be involved in that structure, so that we have the right outcome of the law that can serve us. The other area I want to address is this youth empowerment centers and their sustainability. Of course, there are challenges, especially if, like any other institution, if they are not having proper governance, they are not having right security, some things will disappear. But I think it's important that much as it's easy to say, create partnerships. We need a structure and guidelines so that we have, and I am one person who agrees we should even have the community around using that facility, because it's youth do not, youth are part of the society and you don't remain in youth forever. So I think we should work around and appeal to the youth to come to the table so that we can see, now that we are talking about launching these few centers that are in Reg 12, what structure are we going to put for sustainability and to make sure they are actually serving the actual needs of the youth. I think to me that is important. I would also tell the youth now, okay, we are just ending the BBI. I remember I convened the youth. I don't know if you are involved, or some of you, by a member of parliament, Missy. Yes. We told them, we need the voice of the youth in the BBI. I'm sure you should be concerned what document have they turned in for BBI. Because this is how decisions are made.
Have they shown up? Because I think the BBI are actually winding up.
One paper was presented yesterday by youth to youth.
Yes. Okay. So I think it's very important that opportunities, when they come, the youth is also alert. Keep your eyes open, because these people will not come. We will not come to look for you, but please come, so that now you can be able to hold us accountable to be able to get some of the agenda that you would want.
Right. Thank you. I think also as we're winding up, the issue of internship, because I think this is something you've been talking about even since when you are the chair of the PSC, and the tax rebate as well. That is very pivotal for people to understand why, because I think it's taken a long time. What happened to the tax rebate for the corporates to actually also, you know,
very quickly
be given internship, and of course there's a tax rebate from the government.
Allow me to touch on this education and transforming education, because we all know, most of us, the job we do is not because of the degree within the university. It is not even about the university that you went, but is how did the education that you got from the university prepare you for lifelong education that allows you to change, to adapt to the change that you meet along the way. Therefore, it is very important to know universities will exist to give you liberal education, to develop you. I mean, but we get it wrong when we say education must prepare you for the world of work. That is up to some extent. Then if you need to go for another, look at what the market requires, what skills you need, then you need another development so that you can be able to go to the technical vocational education. So I think we need to look at a good education, relevant, which you can access, is really, really central to transforming individuals. Most of the people are where they are because of the education they have gone. So our education is not banned, the system is okay, but the current ongoing reforms to make it, competence-based, I think we are in the right direction. So let's not blame everything. Let's take what is positive and build on it, and what is not working for us, we leave.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. Let's get closing remarks from Diana Sifuna, also Rafael Obonyo, and Stella. 30 seconds.
So thank you so much again. As we wind up, I think as Youth Agenda, we are committed to just ensuring that the voices of young people are heard. And this is, again, beyond inclusion. We just insist on meaningful engagement, knowing that young people are capable of making resolutions and providing solutions to matters that affect them. So we know what the challenges are, and I think I like the expression that we need to focus on the positive things that are happening, those that are working, and whenever we see a challenge, we should offer solutions. So actually, as Youth Agenda, we using one of the interactions we had with the Keter bill, we actually made recommendations and we made proposals. So we didn't just point out the problems, but we also made recommendations. And that's the spirit of Youth Agenda.
Thank you, thank you. Rafa?
Yeah, I think for me is just to point out that the challenges that youth are facing are quite real. And so we really need real solutions to be able to basically address some of these challenges. We cannot just gloss over issues. I think we must put in robust interventions. And also is to look at youth as a resource. Youth are not just people with a problem or a problem. I think we must also see youth as the solution. And so we must tap into their creativity, innovation, and their talent.
Thank you very much. Stella, lastly.
I think my closing statement would, one, be to talk about open consultation and ensure that we connect the dots between the youth programs that we're establishing, ensure that there's incremental planning and development for young people, and also take stock of some of the gains we are making so that we do not plan activities that actually cancel what has already happened. Things like the internship program are actually a build-up from the Kenya Youth Empowerment Program that worked on internship. So how do we grow? How do we correct some of the mistakes that we did? How do we build up on some of the gains that were made then? Number two, and most important, is to speak to the young people of this nation. A lot is going on. As you have heard the CS speaking, as you have heard us speaking, there's a lot that is happening in this country. If you're not aware, things will happen in your absence. There are very many young people who do not know that there's supposed to be a National Youth Council in this country. There are very many young people who do not even know the contents of the National Youth Policy, yet the information is available online. The same report I was referring to when I did my first speech here talks about youth using internet for browsing videos and pornography. Let them use it to get information about what is happening for youth all over the world and in the country.
Thank you. Right, I think when we have our handy opportunity to have such a conversation, also it's important and pivotal for the youth who are watching this morning also to participate, also to drive also the show and ask questions as well. Numbers were there for you to call if you haven't. But I'm winding up with the tweets. My director CS. We have Philip Nyamai saying, morning panelists. Feel appreciated for the various insights shared. My question goes to Ms. Diana Sifuna. What were other solutions offered at UON for youth employment in Kenya other than having one leg in our universities and the other in the industry? Also, we have there Nyamogi Gogri saying, also a country without proper national policy like this one for ours sometimes turns into a gambling nation because the youth have lost hope in life and are opting for shortcuts for survival. We have also Iri Hub KE Africa saying that we all want to help the youths, create hubs for them, fund the ideas that impose lack tax on their ventures, create a healthy working environment, involve them in policy making. And we have Enoch Sangaka saying yes, and this retrogressive thought that youth need to learn from elders is really wasteful. And lastly, we have also Peter Mutisi saying we are also missing out on energy and foregoing new ideas. That's one reason why farms are closing down and resizing. Those are your reactions on Twitter. Thank you very much for your valid campaign. And I want to thank our panelists, Professor Margaret Kobe. Just your closing remarks.
Yes.
Briefly.
I thought you
I thought you were going to forget me. Please, I'm not forgetting you.
Thank you very much. My closing remarks, just want to reaffirm that the government is very committed to addressing the youth challenges, and that's why I would urge all the youth to make a visit to their youth empowerment center and see what they offer. And at the same time, these challenges, we cannot do them alone as government. We have partnership. And also, let me assure the youth, they need to be clear what they want in their life.
Thank you.
And at the same time, even if we solve these challenges of today, the future of work is already presenting other challenges. So we must learn to solve challenges as we move.
Thank you, Margaret Kobia. Of course, they're all headed to the United Nations Gigir, where, of course, they will be having that particular function of the International Youth Day, and the culmination will be also on Monday as well. The theme is transformation, or transform. What is the theme again?
Transforming education.
Transforming education is a theme that is running under. Thank you for your valid company. My name is Dipalanya.